Africa 54. Here's what's coming up next. Americans are sharing reflections on former President Jimmy Carter following his death on Sunday at the age of 100. President-elect Donald Trump promises to bring down the cost of living for Americans through a different approach to energy. And from South Africa and Kenya, people share their reflections on 2024 and their hopes for 2025. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin our broadcast with more reflections on the 39th President of the United States. Americans are sharing their stories about Jimmy Carter following his death Sunday at the age of 100. VOA Scott Stern has more on their remembrance.
Outside the White House, where flags are flying at half-staff, Californian Cheryl Jones says Jimmy Carter was her favorite president.
He was just a good man, a decent man, an honest man, something we don't see very much in Bolivia.
Kit Burns, a resident of the Washington state city of Tacoma, best remembers Carter for his work building homes for people in need.
There's a number of Habitat for Humanity housing near where I live. And his dedication to helping other people, I think that's the primary purpose for all of us in our lives. And it's terrible, the state of the world is where we're not helping people. And he set such an example for so many years.
Carter showed the importance of caring about people, says Virginia Natosha Walker.
When you're in public service, you're here to serve people. So that's the most important quality. And leading by example. You know, he had Bible study, he did Habitat for Humanity. Those are all good examples of how we should lead and how we should interact with our fellow Americans.
The New York Stock Exchange held a moment of silence for the former president before its opening bell Monday. New Jersey resident Dolores Spivak remembers Carter's work with Israelis and Palestinians.
I am so in awe of him. I'm in awe of his presidency because he was the one who fought for the environment, civil rights. But afterwards, his books that he wrote, especially on the Mideast, were tremendous. I get chills when I talk, when I think about the Camp David Agreement.
Carter's death is an opportunity to learn more about his life and presidency, says Connecticut resident Kim Potvin.
I think a lot of the policy that he was involved with that I wasn't aware of, and also just kind of the economics and history of that time. So I always think that we learn a lot from history because it translates a lot to present day.
In Carter's hometown of Plains, Georgia, Sandra Walters remembers a friend who grew up across the street.
Thank you, Lord, for letting him live 100 years and do all the things that he wanted to do. And I think he accomplished so much that who could be sad over anybody who had done what that man had done from a little town in Plains, Georgia, raised on a peanut farm, and became the President of the United States.
Carter will be buried in Plains after a state funeral in Washington on January 9th. Scott Stearns, VOA News.
At least 71 people died in Ethiopia when a truck packed with passengers plunged into a river, according to the spokesperson for the Southern Sidama Regional Government. This video discusses material some may find disturbing. Ryan Chang has more.
An accident in Ethiopia killed 71 people on Sunday after a truck packed with passengers plunged into a river. Reuters arrived at the scene of the crash Monday and found people looking down at the accident site from a bridge. A local described what he saw.
It went straight to the river. Men and women. Nobody survived. Most of the bodies didn't even have complete body parts. It would have been better if all the corpses were intact. I was here at the time. We collected the bodies of men and women and loaded them onto a car.
A spokesperson for the Sidama Regional Government said local traffic police had reported the truck was overloaded. He said some of the passengers were returning from a wedding ceremony, that the road had many bends, and that the truck missed a bridge and fell into the river below. Deadly traffic accidents are common in Ethiopia. Driving standards there are poor, and many vehicles are badly maintained. In 2018, at least 38 people, mostly students, were killed when a bus plunged into a ravine in Ethiopia's mountainous north.
Ryan Chang of Reuters filed that report. A different approach to energy is at the center of President-elect Donald Trump's promise to bring down the cost of living for Americans. VOA's congressional correspondent Katherine Gibson has more.
A signature campaign promise in August from then Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump.
Our effort to bring the cost of living under control will be the all-out push to end the Biden-Harris war on a thing called American energy. American energy. We will drill, baby, drill.
Is set to become a top priority when the now president-elect is sworn into office on January 20th. Trump aims to boost oil supplies by speeding up permits for drilling and increasing oil exploration off the U.S. coastline. Some analysts say that move could get pushback from oil companies.
We don't really have means to force companies to drill for more oil. And often, investors will have their own concerns about, well, if we have too much oil production, prices might drop.
Trump has also proposed expanding exports of LNG, liquefied natural gas. Qatar's energy minister Saeed Sharida Al-Kabi said earlier this month he had no concerns about Trump's pledge to lift a cap on LNG exports.
Additional LNG and additional competition is welcome. At the end, even if you open up LNG and say we're going to export another 300 million tons from the U.S. or 500 million tons from the U.S., all these projects are driven by private enterprises that look at the commercial viability of projects.
Trump's pick to lead the Department of Energy, Chris Wright, the CEO of an oil field services firm, clashed with Democratic Congressman Sean Casten earlier this year over his statements about climate change.
You said there is no climate crisis. We're not in the midst of an energy transition either. Humans and complex life are simply impossible without carbon dioxide. The idea of carbon pollution is outrageous. You agree you said all those things?
Absolutely.
Okay. It's all...
We could get into which one of those.
Many of Trump's energy plans cannot be accomplished without cooperation from the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and other oil producers.
We export a lot of energy products to both Canada and Mexico. And so if there were reciprocal tariffs from those countries, that could have a negative impact on our producers. So I think most of the energy industry is hoping that this is just the opening salvo.
In a stark contrast to the Biden administration, which prioritized renewable energy and combating climate change, Trump is also expected to cut tax credits for electric vehicles. Katherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
Finnish authorities say they have found tracks stretching for dozens of kilometers along the bottom of the Baltic Sea, where a tanker carrying Russian oil is suspected of breaking a power line and 4 telecom cables. It's the latest in a series of similar incidents that have damaged infrastructure in the Baltic Sea region. Henry Ridgewell has the details.
A tanker carrying Russian oil is being held off Finland's coast as authorities investigate damage caused to power and internet cables last week in the Baltic Sea. Finnish police said Sunday they had discovered a dragging track dozens of kilometres long on the sea floor, apparently caused by an anchor.
4 cables have been broken. We were able to get the situation under control and locate the ship in question, bring it to Finnish waters and begin a criminal proceeding.
Finnish authorities suspect the Cook Islands registered Eagle S is part of Russia's so-called shadow fleet of ageing vessels used to evade Western sanctions on its oil exports, imposed in the wake of Moscow's 2022 full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The Kremlin has not directly responded to accusations of sabotage. The damage to the S-Link 2 power cable and 3 telecom lines is just the latest in a series of similar incidents in the Baltic Sea. In November, a Chinese vessel was suspected of severing 2 fibre-optic data cables in Swedish waters. Last year, the Baltic Connector gas pipeline linking Estonia and Finland was damaged. 10 months later, China said a Hong Kong-registered vessel had caused the damage in a storm, but Finland was sceptical of the admission. Estonia is calling for maritime laws to be updated.
It can't be by accident. This kind of situations are not typical not only for our region, but also for other regions in the world. So that technological developments that we have, we think that it is a good idea to look over also the international law to make these investigations more smoothly.
NATO said Friday it would boost its presence in the Baltic Sea. The alliance recently staged maritime drills in the region, but responding to apparent hybrid attacks, such as the targeting of undersea cables, is complex, says analyst Charlie Salonius-Pasternak.
If you attribute it or you blame someone, will you kind of intensify the circle, and what are you going to do about it? Because you clearly cannot use the same retributionary tools, as it were, against Russia and China, at least not yet, I think.
Authorities say it could take until August to repair the damage to the S-Link 2 cable. Henry Ridgewell, VOA News.
As North Korea troops bolster Russia's war effort in Ukraine, the United States is urging China to rein in its allies' provocative actions. The VOA's State Department Bureau Chief Nike Ching reports.
U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping held their third and likely final face-to-face talks on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit last month in Lima, Peru. During their talks, Biden expressed deep concerns over China's support for Russia, which Washington says has prolonged the war in Ukraine. He also condemned North Korea for sending thousands of troops to fight alongside Russian forces. For his part, Xi reiterated China's efforts to mediate peace talks, positioning Beijing as a potential stabilizing force in the war. In meetings with his NATO counterparts, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that European allies have joined the United States in urging China to do more to curb its material assistance to Russia, which threatens security in Europe.
Over the past 4 years, we've had an unprecedented convergence among allies on the challenges that China poses to transatlantic security, and that includes its critical support for Russia's defense industrial base, which enables Russia's ongoing aggression, and intensifies what is the biggest threat to European security since the end of the Cold War.
Chinese officials have avoided making any comments about North Korea's decision to send troops to Russia. Analysts say this silence reveals China's frustration and the dilemma posed by the growing military ties between its two neighbors.
The Putin-Xi relationship is not as solid or close as sometimes we imagine it. Putin will do what's in his interest, and he won't necessarily tell the Chinese what he's doing. I don't believe the Chinese were informed in advance, for example, of this mutual defense pact between Putin and the North.
Some former U.S. officials say the explicit security partnership between Russia and North Korea could weaken China's strategic position in East Asia and have long-term implications that may not benefit Beijing. Nike Ching, VOA News, Washington.
Still to come, South Africans reflect on 2024 and share their outlook for 2025.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, we take a look at the players of the technology industry in Africa, big and small.
Big tech wasn't really here. What have they seen in the past 10 years, which is making all of them want to put their HQ here?
If you're a business that sees itself going global, we'll definitely need some sort of like boosts. We need to tap into those existing networks that these big tech companies do provide.
Is there a downside to big investment in Africa?
A famous author once wrote, "A vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision just passes the time. A vision with action can change the world." As we begin a new year, let us come together on the next episode of Our Voices to explore the power of using a vision board to achieve our goals in 2025. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices. In other news, a Malian court jailed a political figure Monday for making critical remarks about the military rulers of neighboring Burkina Faso, according to a legal source and his family. Issa Kawu Jim previously supported military leader Assimi Goïta before distancing himself. Jim was sentenced by a court in Bamako to 2 years in prison, one of which was suspended. French Prime Minister François Bayrou arrived Monday in the Indian Ocean territory of Mayotte to unveil a recovery plan 3 weeks after Cyclone Chido brought devastation. Bayrou updated the death toll to 39, but says the final number could rise considerably. And South Korean officials are planning to conduct safety inspections of all Boeing 737-800 aircraft operated by the country's airlines as they struggle to determine what caused a weekend plane crash that killed 179 of the 181 people aboard. Protesters by young Kenyans in 2024 sent shockwaves through the country's political scene, forcing the government to drop proposed taxes and fire several ministers. The youth movement highlighted the challenges Kenya face as government tries to increase revenues from citizens who are grappling with the high cost of living and are angry about corruption and what they see as attempt to stifle dissent. Mohammed Yusuf reports from Nairobi.
On June 25, 2024, the streets of Nairobi and the area around Parliament were filled with protests. Demonstrators clashed with police, eventually breaking into the National Assembly and setting part of it on fire. Some protesters lost their lives and others went missing. The protest forced President William Ruto to withdraw the 2024 finance bill. Protesters argued that the bill meant to raise taxes on food items, fuel and motor vehicles, will make life difficult as they continue to deal with the high cost of living.
It's a sad event because I think it's more the so-called Gen Zs who should be the ones best equipped to articulate an issue. But instead they decided to treat it the same way my age mates and those older than me would have done it, with limited information but a lot of aggression.
The Kenyan streets may be quiet and calmer these days, but the anger against the government hasn't gone away. Many feel very little is being done to fight bad governance and corruption, which is impacting the progress of the country and making life difficult for them.
Business is slow, people aren't buying, and we are struggling with our jobs. We hope better things next year and hope that President William Ruto will not be re-elected. We refuse that.
This year has been challenging, with no money and struggling businesses. We urge our leaders, especially President Ruto, to address our concerns and improve our situation.
Some were happy with their achievements.
My year was a great year. I actually finished my college. I was taking journalism and mass communication. I went for attachment, and I've finished my attachment a few days ago.
This year, the youth movement has shaped Kenya's political scene, but many hope 2025 will be a better year and that their government will listen to their cries and do something to improve their lives. Mohammed Yusuf, VOA News, Nairobi.
It's the holiday season, and with that comes celebrations, good cheer, and sometimes an overindulgence in alcohol. Experts say drinking too much during the holidays season is a widespread concern, as many people drink heavily as a way to celebrate. Juma Majanga has more from Nairobi, Kenya.
The Roca Lounge Bar and Restaurant in Nairobi's Utawala Estate is packed with revelers. David Kinoti says he is out to enjoy drinks with his friends.
We have to drink. Sometimes this life we have nowadays, we have to take tips so that we can survive. This one is not very easy, so we take tips so that we can survive. Yes, especially the economy of Ruto, we have to take tips so that we can survive.
Kinoti admits that after a night of drinking, he suffers from hangovers.
Hangover, it's very obvious. But the following day, you feel like you don't feel to wake up, you don't feel like doing anything, you just feel like relaxing, like sleeping.
Dr. Kingi Mochache is a psychiatrist working with Psych Care Medical Center in Nairobi. She explains how hangovers occur as the body tries to process alcohol.
You remember in chemistry, there are stages of how you break down something, So when alcohol is being broken down, there's something here in the middle called acetaldehyde. That thing is the one that after that has to wait in a certain level for the next metabolism. This is the thing that causes hangover. It feels very bad. It makes someone feel nauseous, vomiting, feel very bad. So the people who accumulate a lot of acetaldehyde, it's because the next step delays, it's slower, and then they have a harder time.
Dr. Muchachi says alcohol dehydrates the body by increasing the production of urine, which can lead to symptoms like dry mouth and dizziness. It disrupts sleep patterns, leaving individuals feeling tired and irritable. She says hangovers also affect people's mental performance.
Of course, you're not going to be of sound mind and you're going to be unwell. So it depends on your job, and if your job is sensitive, I would say maybe your manager should not allow you to work. You should just take either a leave day or something so that you're in the right frame of mind. People who, like pilots, doctors, there are these careers where you really need to be concentrating and in a good state of health. Don't endanger other people's lives because of a hangover.
Experts say there is no medical remedy for hangovers, and recovering from them may vary from one person to another. Kinoti says solutions such as rehydration or getting extra sleep works for him.
Take soup and fruits. They help a lot. Yes, to remove hangovers, and you will be very sober to go to work.
A 2022 survey by Kenya's National Authority for the Campaign Against Alcohol and Drug Abuse, NACADA, showed alcohol use prevalence at 44.5% among public sector employees and at 30% among the general public. As the festive season kicks in, Dr. Kingi urges responsible drinking.
Drink responsibly. There is the criteria of how to drink responsibly if you must. Ideally, look for other ways to have fun. As I said, there is a formula on how to drink. Understand yourself. Don't do reckless drinking and driving, operating machinery, getting to a level of being completely drunk. Avoid that.
Medical experts say hangover can significantly impact personal and public health by causing decreased productivity at work due to fatigue and increased risk of accidents and injuries from poor coordination due to impaired cognitive function, and puts potential strain on healthcare systems due to individuals seeking relief for hangover symptoms. Juma Majanga, VOA Africa, Nairobi.
People worldwide are beginning to ring in the 2025 New Year with excitement and optimism. Ahead of the celebrations, people in South Africa share their reflections on 2024 and hopes for 2025. Tuso Komalo has more from Johannesburg.
Many in South Africa have described 2024 as a year of ups and downs, slowed down especially by the need to recover from the long-term economic effects of COVID-19. In the course of the year, companies have shut down, jobs have been lost, and the inequality gap has increased, especially between the rich and the poor.
When it comes to economic-wise, there can be a lot to say. But in a nutshell, I just hope and wish that things can improve here within South Africa, especially with the underprivileged people, the poor society that people still live, under shacks, people still live without water, without electricity. My hope and wish is that at least 2025 can bring greater changes, especially to the underprivileged people.
But the challenges of 2024 have not stopped South Africans from dreaming big in 2025.
My goals for 2025 is to have a house, buy my mother a house, and having a bigger shop than this one. Having a shop like it will be international.
The personal goals I feel, if myself I can manage to make my kids live better. How? By providing them best education, best meal, best sleep, best home. You know what I mean? This will make them have a better future.
And some have tips to share with the general population.
One must just do his bits, the government will do his bits, everybody do a little part of the jigsaw puzzle, then the picture shows up, And we've learned in politics, that it's everybody for himself. And we need just to make sure that we do our best as individuals in our own corner, brighten up your corner, life will be better.
With South Africa's government of national unity starting to find its feet, with a few positives already being realized in the availability of electricity, the resilience of the rand, and creation of jobs in some sectors, many are saying they are looking forward to a prosperous 2025. Tuso Kumalo for VOA News, Johannesburg.
Thanks, Tuso Kumalo. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching. Happy New Year.